thanks to everyone for joining us today for this fireside chat panel, South by Southwest style discussion about Black Friday, Cyber Monday, and sustainability. There's going to be no decks, there's no slides. We just wanted to have a discussion about from industry experts about an important topic that often gets very overlooked and doesn't really get talked about during what is probably one of the worst events from an environmental standpoint and sustainability standpoint that happens every year. So thank you all for joining. And I'll ask, I guess we'll go around and just introduce ourselves, where we're from, our title, what our area of expertise is. And I guess I will, since we're not actually in a room together to go around the table, I will just ask Mel maybe to start.
Okay, awesome. Well, my name is Mel Luby, and I'm the Chief Impact Officer at Daily Karma. My expertise is in all things cost marketing, specifically focused in the digital sense. Daily Karma is a B2B software that facilitates giving back for brands online. So that's just a little bit about what we do.
Yeah, let's go to Katie next.
Hi, I'm Katie Boothby-Kung. I'm the Senior Manager for Social Impact at Shopify, the e-commerce company that many of you might know about. So my expertise is working with social enterprises and how we can make this type of business model more accessible to more entrepreneurs around the world so that they want to not just become their own business owner, entrepreneur, but they want to become a more sustainable business in doing so.
Perfect. And Phil.
So guys, Philip Axar, founder, CEO of Arca Packaging. We are a platform for businesses to design and order packaging online, specifically those that are in the long tail. So if you were hearing about that company, that little company that was just being spoken about earlier, someone like a Shopify, massive user base of people that may have difficulty getting packaging because they don't have the buying power of like a Kellogg's or a Procter & Gamble, and they want to get their company started. They want to scale their business. They'll go with someone like us. Area of expertise, industrial manufacturing, engineering with a focus in packaging from the Bay Area. Super excited to be in this discussion. So thanks for having me.
No problem. Thank you. My name is Tim Packover from Smile.io. I am in charge of all of our marketing community, and Smile, if you're not familiar with us, are a loyalty and rewards platform for helping scaling e-commerce brands build loyalty and retention and keep those customers coming back. I'm just the host, the moderator today of the panel. Our expertise obviously is in loyalty and retention, and so we're going to let the experts talk about sustainability rather than trying to do it ourselves. We're going to let you guys speak to what you guys know best. So to kick things off, I think maybe we can, for some of the questions that I'll ask everyone, we can kind of move in the same order that we did the intros. So the first question that I really have is, what brands are really leading the pack when it comes to sustainability? Who comes up in your mind as like they're the ones to follow that other brands should be wanting to learn from? And if there's a why behind that, maybe share that as well. So I'll send that to Mel first.
I love this question. And when, I think that there's obviously like the industry giants, like the REIs, that I think when it comes to how REI is approaching it, like they're always top of mind for me, because I think how not only do they approach like Black Friday, Cyber Monday, but just in general, their approach to sustainability and making sure that that's at the kind of the forefront of the customer experience. Mm-hmm. But also, they're in different verticals, companies like Biossance, they've been doing this since 2003. I think that they're incredible. And also, smaller companies, like up and coming companies, like a company actually based out of Los Angeles called Ocean and Main, which is they use zero water waste in the production of their caftans. So I think it's really fun to look kind of cross vertical as well as within different sizes, because you can see how people innovate depending on company size.
Cool. Awesome. Yeah, having like the really bigs like REIs and then like small up and comers is cool.
Yeah.
How about you, Katie? who are your go-tos?
Yeah, I like that you kind of think about it kind of cross industry, because I'm thinking about that as well, and kind of cross, sustainability expertise. There's brands that are really good at end of life and what that looks like in terms of, recycling and making sure that they're, you're getting your refills. So I think of a brand like Meow Meow Tweet, who's doing a really, really cool job in making sure that their packaging is ending up in the right place and not just in the garbage. And then you think of, like you said, the large brands that have been doing this forever, the Rothys, the Allbirds, those guys have been killing it in sustainability, and they just keep on this trajectory of constantly making themselves better, better, better. But I think that if you were to, break it down, who's the best in carbon neutrality, who's the best in packaging, who's the best, like you could, list off a whole bunch of really, really interesting brands. And I mean, outside of just, B2C, there's also the brands like you guys that we get to work with, the Daily Karmas and the Arcas, who are doing really, really cool things across our app store. So yeah, not just thinking about product-based businesses, but also the technology leaders in this space as well.
Cool. Yeah, what you were saying about companies that make it really easy for their shoppers to recycle and actually be part of that process, that's a nice segue into Phil and Arca, because they actually enable some companies to do that. So Phil, who are some of the companies that maybe that are your customers, or just that you see out there in the world that are doing a really good job at that?
Yeah, absolutely. A couple come to mind, but also back at you to Shopify, because I know they're putting a great deal of effort towards sustainability and eco-friendly practices, and it's awesome to see big public companies leading the way and leading by example for that. But a couple companies come to mind, one of which is a company called Felix Gray, which they essentially just ditched plastic. They're a eyeglasses company
Cool.
that essentially just like ditched plastic to be able to have 100% paper in their packaging for when they actually house the glasses themselves. Whereas with some fulfillment companies, like even like an Amazon FBA, if you have anything that's glass or glass related, it has to go through a process of being wrapped in plastic. If it's not properly protected, no matter what, they just have to do that. But if you have a certain setup that allows for the product to rest nicely and safely inside of another material, in this case paper, they'll be able to send it out the door safely without that extra step, which saves you money, but also you're not having to have your customer ditch plastic when they receive your product. Like, that's not a great feeling. And then another one is actually a friend I went to college with. His company is called Dropwater. They actually got some seed funding from Google, and they do biodegradable just water containers. So you can just drink your water, take the cap, and then the bottle itself would biodegrade, which is pretty cool.
Cool.
I love it when companies do cool stuff like that.
Awesome. It'll be cool to see other companies that are innovating like that aren't just doing, removing the plastic from the process, but actually innovating to make the whole process more environmentally friendly. That's awesome. So for a question that'll be for everyone is, there's all these different companies that are doing cool things in sustainability, but what would you say is the single greatest tactic that brands can use when they're approaching BFCM and thinking about all of these potential packages and customers that are going to be receiving their products? What's the single greatest tactic that they can use when thinking about sustainability as we approach this season? Let's start with Mel again.
Okay. Oh, here we go. So I approach this question from a sense of like, how are we relaying that message, right? Like how we're looking at this from a cause marketing angle. And I think that really there's kind of three different, I'm giving you three, sorry. Because I think there's that idea of like, brands going dark, kind of doing a buy nothing Friday, which is bold, like just kind of saying, you know what, we're not participating in this. And we do see brands do that. We see brands focus more on the Green Friday aspect, like making sure, that they're really practicing, solid practices year round, but highlighting the fact that like, no, we're not doing Black Friday. We're focusing on the sustainable, being more sustainable on Black Friday. And then also, sometimes brands will just choose to take that moment where they know that they're getting this huge onslaught of traffic to their site and therefore purchases are going up, to donate a large portion of that to a nonprofit that's supporting sustainability. And I think all of the, there's not one right answer because so many companies are in various stages of growth, have, they have to make sure that they're still paying their staff and they have numbers to meet. So I think that there's three depending on kind of where you are. Curious to know what the other folks think.
Yeah, I like this idea of volume. You're going to be getting, what's the stat? Most brands make 80% of their revenue between like in the holiday season, starting with BFCM. And so how can you leverage that volume for your business, but then how can you turn it back into something good? And so like you guys are saying, using that increased traffic to raise more dollars, and also thinking like, okay, we're going to be shipping, 1,000% more orders. So, what does that look like from a shipping perspective? What does that look like from a packaging perspective? you're going to be having this massive volume. How can you turn that into something that isn't going to be super harmful for the planet? And then also thinking about, you call it Christmas in July, people are starting to get ready for the holiday season months ago. And so what does that look like in an inventory perspective? Do you know that you're going to sell all your inventory over the holidays? And if you don't, make slower times, relay that to your customers, say, we are doing everything made to order so that we're not creating a ton of holiday waste because, come January 1st and you chuck it in the trash bin. But being very upfront with your customers months in advance, getting ready and being excited for what's coming Black Friday, Cyber Monday, but saying, you are going to have to wait for that t-shirt that you really want because we do want to be mindful of the environment. And we're not ordering thousands of SKUs with some of them to end up in the landfill.
It's true.
Yeah, so it's not that there's necessarily one thing that's like, hey, this is the one thing you need to do, but it's like there's all these little things you can do starting, back in July, and like together it'll like domino effect to having a big impact on your BFCM sustainability.
And I really like Katie's point. So much of it's about communication. Like, I think customers want to be connecting with these brands. And so if you're, that tidbit about like explaining to them the why behind some of these things, I think goes a long way.
Totally. I have to mirror on that, especially if something is just late. I mean, supply chain issues, we're all going to run into some sort of hiccup between now and the end of the year, maybe even going into Q1. At least we're already seeing a lot of that on our end. Like, this is the largest paper shortage, and there's been 4 price increases in paper in the last year. And the last time this happened, I mean, you're typically seeing like 1 increase in 4 years. We're seeing 4 in 1. So it's such a volatile time in the packaging world right now. So being able to communicate, we're learning a lot of that. Whereas typically we had everything together where, we'd have like a pizza tracker of sorts. Hey, your box is in production. Hey, it's being printed. Hey, it's being cut. We've had to like manually go around all of that and give these additional updates just because of everything that's going on in the industry right now. So communication, regardless of even the topic, it just goes such a long way. I have to agree with that. If I can jump in about the single greatest tactic.
Yeah.
So this can be the most wasteful time of the year when it comes to materials that are being sent out the door, right? Because if you translate the 80% of revenue in this short period of time, that also means close to at least, it's at the very least a majority of the packaging that's going to be dumped on people's doorsteps. So, raise your hand if you've essentially gotten a product in a package that was like way too big.
Yeah.
Right. Like we've all received like a toothbrush in a box like this big. So if I was to just take like the capitalist route for a sec and say I will incentivize you not to do that, you can make such small tweaks about your product and the package that your product goes into rather. For example, if you're shipping a 12 cubed box from LA to New York versus just like a 10 cubed box, you brought it down a little bit, you're going to be saving 25% in the shipping costs alone as a merchant, as a company, as a business that's shipping something online. So keep that in mind when you're actually trying to optimize your package for the product that you're trying to send out the door. And I understand there are some restraints out there that may have you required to like get like a catch-all size that gets a bunch of your different products. But unless you are Amazon, you should have the flexibility to be able to optimize better. And if you can do that leading up to the holidays, that's a huge deal. And then the other one is being able to just cut your waste in half by not having your product go in a package that goes in another package that gets sent out the door. So this acronym SIOC, ships in its own container. That's something that we try to be a huge proponent of, so that the box that your product comes in is a sturdy shipper box, but it's beautifully branded. Or maybe you don't, or maybe you're worried about something to get taken off your porch. So you open it up and the inside is beautifully branded and the outside can just be simply blank if you want. And in that regard, talking about those inserts or like a safe cavity to put your product in so that they don't wrap it in plastic if it's made out of glass, will allow that product to fit safely and nicely and it doesn't require an additional box inside of that to just continually be digging through trash, essentially, to get to the final product. So it creates a better unboxing experience. You could be saving on shipping, and you're buying less stuff, not just as a merchant, as a consumer. There's just less stuff, less waste involved when you're mindful of that process and how your packaging is set up.
It just seems like it's just a better unboxing experience. I don't know about you, but like when I get a box that looks nice in the mail, I'm way more excited to like crack that thing open than when it's just, if it's got an Amazon sticker on it, I'm like, nah, whatever. But like if I know what it is, even if I have to open it up to see that beautiful branding, like it just makes it that much more exciting to open it up, take pictures, share it on social, that kind of thing.
100%.
Cool. So the next question I have is specifically for Mel. We've heard lots of phrases like people vote with their wallet, or like wallet activism. So how have you seen like this increase of social cause marketing influence the way that customers actually shop? So like, especially during peak seasons like this, or even the past 18 months as everything has moved to e-commerce, and everything is pivoted online. How have you seen people actually do more of this like voting with their wallet?
I mean, it's such a fun question because I think that it's, we've been talking about cause marketing for years, but it's really within, the last 18 months where I feel like it's starting to come to a head, because it's not only the fact that everybody's shopping online, but also, as the younger demographic, Gen Z, like there was, everybody was talking about millennials, now everybody's talking about Gen Z. And, we know that even like as we move up generationally, the younger generation cares a lot more. Like 91% of Gen Z believe that the companies must take action to help social and environmental issues, 91%. And so if a company wants to stay in business, they have to be reacting to that. And I think when we're shopping online, focusing on mission, and under the context of that mission, sustainability being part of it. When you're talking through those pillars with your customers, it helps you raise above the noise. People aren't afraid to spend more on a product that is doing better for the environment. And I think this idea of conscious consumerism is only like it's a sense of how we're experiencing like online shopping, in the sense of how we're interacting with our favorite brands. So I think it helps our brand partners to be less transactional and more kind of connecting with those shoppers as they're participating. And it also really helps them raise above the noise because they're inundated with ads, they're inundated with new stores or similar products. And when you start focusing on things like mission, sustainability, how that company is actually impacting the world, you get that loyal customer that'll only shop there, and they become like brand evangelists.
Yeah, absolutely. We see that so often where it's not just a brand who like happens to have an environmental or sustainability or cause part of their business, but like the story is the brand and like the cause is the brand, which is always cool to see.
Yeah, I think it should color everything. I mean, to me, I think it's like mission and purpose, especially when it comes to sustainability, should color everything a brand does, because it's good. Like, it's not just good for the environment. If you do it well, it's going to be good for business too.
Totally. I saw a bunch of case studies on Daily Karma's platform talking about how like average order value goes up, repeat customers, like churn goes down, people want to come back. Similar story for packaging, but I love that you guys have those case studies like on a business per business basis. That was pretty cool.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Well, and packaging is a big part of it too, because if your brand is all about a cause, whether it's environmentalism or something else, and you make it every part of your business, but then like you don't do that with your packaging, then like,
totally. Thank you.
Yeah, that's not going to sit well with customers.
No, it's true.
Yeah.
I mean, it's those little like moments of being incongruent, right? Where like in that generation, I mean, Philip, I imagine you can speak to this. Like, they're going to be like, but you said you're environmentally friendly. Look at all this plastic.
Totally. I mean, we're not only are we trying to like optimize their packaging for eco-friendliness, but we're working on an integration right now with a company called Ecocard. Are you guys familiar with them? They essentially work with carbon capture. So essentially you'll pay like at sometimes like 2% on top of your purchase, and that will go towards having carbon neutral. You can say you have carbon neutral packaging. Like, so we can offer carbon neutral packaging and we won't necessarily force it on you because that would make it automatically 2% more expensive. But
Right.
you have the option. You have the choice. Like we were just starting this part of the conversation with, in terms of like voting with your dollars, voting with your wallet. And so as a business out there, you can come to us and say, yes, this is a brand pillar for my company. This is important to our company. And we're going to do that by actually making a purchase that's going to go towards carbon capturing. So there are companies like Ecocard out there. There's a marketplace like Pachama. The former founder actually went through YC with, like, man, 5, 6 years ago now, 5 years ago. And really cool dude. They've absolutely blasted off. It's becoming huge right now, and it's something that I think most people can take a look at in terms of making whatever part of that process, even in the manufacturing of your product, carbon neutral. As long as a percentage of that goes towards carbon capture, you'll be offsetting whatever part of your supply chain has, negative impact, and you're essentially paying this positive impact to create neutrality, which I think is huge. That's even more. I think that's going to be like the next conversation when it comes to things just simply being like eco-friendly. You can look at it at a high level and remove the carbon negative impact towards everything, which is pretty cool. I'm excited about that. More on that soon.
Cool.
I mean, well, Katie, Shopify did something like that last year, right? For Black Friday, Cyber Monday, where you guys were focused on like offsetting carbon emissions.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think it's the discussion around carbon, it wasn't something that people were talking about, I would argue, a year ago. People didn't really know what was going on. I think that it's definitely becoming a bit more of a conversation. I think it's because, there's apps out there that are making it a lot easier to do. Companies are wanting to understand how to do it. They don't need to stand up a whole team within their business to be able to make an impact. And so I think that this is going to be really interesting. But on the flip side of it is that as brands are starting to think about carbon capture, carbon neutrality, and things like that, how do you then communicate some of these really complicated concepts to your customers? How do you make it something that they want to be a part of? Maybe this is me speaking personally, but on the surface, talking about carbon capture, it seems a bit dry. So how can you make it exciting? There's a company in New Zealand called Ecocard, and they allow their customers that are offsetting and making their products and their supply chains carbon neutral. They share with them the stories of the forests that they're working in, or the communities that they're supporting these projects, so that then they can share that with their customers and saying, by buying this carbon neutral product, you're supporting this forest in New Zealand that has been around for generations. And really making those personal connections with your customers, rather than just talking about these very complicated sustainability concepts that sometimes doesn't translate very nicely over an online store or an Instagram post. So how can you make these ideas more human and more relatable with your customers? I think that's that connector piece that a lot of brands are missing right now. I think they're so focused on how can we be better? How can we constantly be better? Because, we're being told by everybody that our customers want this, and they're doing it, but their customers aren't relating to these projects and concepts because they're not communicating it properly. And so just thinking about that as well.
Yeah, and just making it personal. I think that's one of the things, is like that the story with the trees is like, it's not just, I'm not just checking a box. It's like, yeah, make it carbon neutral. Like it's like your individual purchase helped, save this specific tree, or like, obviously it's not gonna be that specific, but like making it so personal. That it's like, what was that, Phil?
I said it can be like they actually, I mean, what Drew was just talking about, it actually can be with what Katie's talking about, which is actually pretty cool.
Yeah. People want to know it.
Yeah. So that actually leads me to the question I was going to ask you next, Katie, is as a platform, Shopify, you guys have, thousands of employees, and then you have all of these different app partners like Smile, like Daily Karma, like Arca, and then you have all of the, millions and millions of customers that are shopping with you as well. So how do you guys actually keep track of, all of the potential sustainability and the carbon offsets, and how do you guys keep track of that and figure out how you make the most impact, or decide where you want to make the impact on the company level or the partner level or the actual shopper level?
Totally. I mean, yeah, I'm just one person in a team of many. We have
Right.
a number of different teams. We have Stacy, who's our director of the sustainability fund. So she's really focused on Shopify and what we can be doing to be more environmentally friendly. We have folks that are focused on not just necessarily environmental sustainability, but also social sustainability and things like that. So yeah, from the Shopify perspective, I mean, we have a team. We have Stacy's team that has been heads down for over a year now. They focus on, our sustainability fund and funding those carbon projects, but also, how the entire business of Shopify can be more and more sustainable year over year. So she's obviously very busy doing that. And then when it comes to our merchants, and our app partners, a lot of that is through the work that I do. How can we? My mandate is, how can we make sustainable businesses more accessible to everyone? How can we make being socially and environmentally responsible easier and the first choice for any entrepreneur coming to Shopify? And so it's working with app partners like Daily Karma and Arca to figure out, like, how can we, how can more merchants interact with apps like this? How can they interact more with products like this? How can we use partnerships and education to do that? And then it's also just having conversations and building relationships across our entire ecosystem and finding those gaps. How can we, as carbon is becoming more popular, or as people are thinking more about made to order and not holding a lot of inventory, it's like, okay, there's these trends that we see within our merchant base, but just in the industry as a whole through e-commerce, and how can we translate what we're seeing on our side, and how can we work better with our partners in our ecosystem so that we can all be building towards this together. If I may make a bit of a plug, it's like, I want, if you're out there building an app that's going to make commerce more sustainable, either socially or environmentally, I want you to come and talk to me. Please find me on LinkedIn, tell me about what you're building, because a lot of the times, I hear about trends and I get into conversations with some interesting folks working in this space, and building an app just isn't on their radar, or becoming a Shopify partner was just never on their radar. And so it's like, we want you, come be part of our ecosystem. How can we get you in front of our merchant base? How can we get you working with entrepreneurs who want to make the world more sustainable? And that's been a big part of my role, is, having these one-to-many partnerships and education tools so that we can surface these things that we're doing as a company from a tech perspective, but then also we're not going to be able to build it all as Shopify. And that's why we've always relied on our partner ecosystem. And so the call is the same. It's like, we're not going to be able to, capture all the carbon out of the air as one company, and we need to rely on people that are innovating in this space. And a lot of the times it's folks that are using tech as a tool to save the planet. And we want to know who you are, and we want to work with you, and we want to get our merchants on board. And so, yeah, I mean, the Offset app, I mean, there's a lot of Offset apps now. There's a lot of donation apps now in the App Store, which I think is amazing. And it's just showing kind of like that trend. And so if you're doing something a little bit different, and yeah, you're reducing those barriers, we want to know who you are.
Well, I think it is really cool and really powerful too in ecosystems like the Shopify partners and the apps, that all of these technologies can work together. It's not like either, I can use Daily Karma and, donate to charity, or I can use, Arca to do sustainable packaging. You can do both, and they can work together. And the environmental and sustainability impact just multiplies, because you're like you were talking about earlier, Katie, it's all of those little things that's like, oh, I can do this and I can do this, and oh, I should be thinking about this. And in overall, that's what's going to have a large impact and help a brand be, more sustainable in the long term rather than just, small little things or trying to think of, how can I make my brand save the planet? It's all these little things together that kind of make it impactful.
Totally.
Yeah,
Nice.
they all build on each other.
Yeah. Phil, the last question that I have for you was just around packaging and cardboard, because oftentimes we think, oh, if it's not plastic and it's, my packaging is made of cardboard, then it's sustainable. And that's all you have to figure out. But obviously, that not all paper and cardboard is created equal. So I wonder if you just share a bit about the importance of making sure that even if you're using cardboard and paper, that what you should be thinking about as far as making it actually sustainable and not just green.
Totally. Great question. I mean, at a high level, since we're FSC certified, we have the chain of custody for FSC certification, which not only guarantees our packaging to be eco-friendly and of a certain percentage of post-consumer content, recycled and recyclable, it's down to our production facility and the facility that we source the paper from. But just a hot tip to folks that are purchasing packaging out there, whether it's from us or somewhere else, I can't tell you how many times a business will come to us and say they're headed towards something eco-friendly on the packaging side, and then unbeknownst to them, they'll ask for some sort of like spot gloss or varnish on the paper itself. And there are ways to get like an aqueous coat that is still recyclable. But if you're looking at a varnish or a gloss, that typically might be plastic based. And that is going to completely remove your ability to recycle that the same way you would be able to take something that's, craft, not bleached, and 100% eco-friendly. So for the most part, I still want to be cheering everyone that is just moving towards paper. Like, first things first, let's just get everyone on paper first. Yes, not all paper is created equal, but let's make sure people are just using paper first to the largest extent of their ability that they can, specifically with creating like corrugated cardboard inserts instead of foam inserts or plastic wrap or whatever. All of that will make for a much better unboxing experience, especially since you can actually brand the corrugated inserts and have like a nice design on them, and you can like lift the product out of the cavity, and inside the cavity it says like thank you or something, whatever, or whatever cute messaging you want to have for it. But yeah, simple things like making sure you're not just adding gloss for no reason to something and adding plastic to something that was completely devoid of plastic a second ago. You just ruined it. It's ruined. But yeah, not all paper is created equal in that regard. Make sure that you look for FSC certification or SFI just to start and move in that direction. If you're doing that, you're still so way ahead of the game.
Right.
Yeah, I will leave you with that.
Yeah, that reminds me, I think it was a Vox video that I saw a while ago of like all the things that you're recycling that are not actually recyclable because they have that gloss coating on it and you just wouldn't think of it.
Dang.
Yeah. It's such a small thing, and I'm sorry, you just ruined it. But I think a lot of not to, design is not my background, obviously, but there's so much tasteful packaging out there that doesn't need those types of bells and whistles. You're seeing a lot of like craft boxes with just black ink or craft boxes with just white ink, and you don't have to go all out to have a really nice customer experience or nice brand for that matter. I think at the end of the day, if you're putting effort towards your packaging, if you're putting effort towards your experience, towards the customer journey, all things are going to help each other, and all things can cancel each other out. Like what Mel was saying in terms of incongruency. So you could have an excellent customer journey, and it ends up showing up in a box with a bunch of like shredded paper, and you're like, what is this? So why were you guys number one in your service, and then you send me this? And similarly, you could have the most pristine packaging ever, and you just ghost your customer for 2 weeks and then send them tracking at the last second. That's not good either. So it's interwoven all throughout, but just finalizing with something that's simple on the packaging side is good enough. You don't need to go crazy, because sometimes going crazy means extra waste, superfluous material in something that nobody ever asked for. Whereas if you're just being eco-friendly, simple, and the product is protected, so you don't have to put a package inside of a package, and you're not embarrassed to open the product and see something tiny in a package that's huge. All these little things can make such a huge difference. So hopefully if you listen to this and you've gotten this far, congratulations. And those small tips can go a really long way.
Well, thank you all so much. That's been great. I've learned a lot. I've learned about some cool brands, some cool technologies. I guess I will wrap it up by just getting a quick hot question of what we talked about. Brands are doing a lot for sustainability, but I guess I'll just ask everyone quickly before we go, what is one brand that you're looking forward to buying something from over Black Friday, Cyber Monday? I guess we'll keep the same route. So Mel, we'll start with you.
Oh God, I'm first. We're new homeowners, so everything that I want is all for my house. Like, I mean,
Congrats.
thank you. The only thing that I think is like a hot ticket item for me is, I mean, I always look for Biosance's like sales on the holidays. Like their skincare is incredible. That's always like the buy for myself. And then I'm getting like a Roomba. But like,
Ooh,
that's a great buy.
like those are like my
Roomba's
two wish
great.
lists. It's like I would like some nice oil for my skin and a robot vacuum.
What else can you ask for?
Nothing, literally nothing.
All right, Katie, how about you?
Oh, this is tough because I I just love shopping, and so immediately like thousands of ideas just popped into my head. But I will tell you, rather than telling you a brand, but rather just a trend that I really like, because I do love buying clothes in excess, is anyone that does resale. So whether it's a big marketplace or if you're doing it all on your own, plug to a couple apps in the Shopify store that are helping smaller brands do resale all on their own so that they're not losing out on that revenue. But it makes me feel better about the clothes that I'm buying because I do love buying clothes. And so, I'm not creating anything new. And yeah, it's just, and it's kind of like that thrill of the find as well. I know that that's a big part of resale is like you find something for a really good deal and you're like, whoa, I would never get this at retail. And so that's super exciting. So that's generally, I like, it's like thrifting, but I don't need to leave my house.
Can
No
I
one
add
wants
to
to
that?
leave their house. Yeah.
Like Katie, I think that's such a brilliant idea. It's like what maybe like in lieu of like what I wish for versus like what I hope people like acquire. It is things like let's take back this idea of secondhand and like regifting really fun things, or also, doing things like, we've had friends that have done consistently like donate in your honor somewhere. I think is always really cool too. Mm-hmm. But I love, like, kudos to you for bringing up reselling because it's so fun.
Well, I think it's just, sorry, not to drag this on, but I sometimes feel weird around the holidays buying somebody like used items for Christmas or whatever holiday you're celebrating. For me, it's Christmas. And so I've made an effort to ask my family members if I was to buy them like a really nice designer bag, would you be okay with it being secondhand? And they all said yes. So yay. As long as it's something swanky, they're good with secondhand. So then now I don't feel so weird buying used things for people.
Well, and now you can feel excited about buying like really swanky stuff, but like not having to worry about it being new. Yeah.
I love it.
Cool. Well, Phil, how about you? How do you one up that?
I mean, I can't. I really can't. And plus, I don't really buy stuff that often. But I will go with my girlfriend and she'll buy stuff and she'll get stuff off of Poshmark just to go off of what Kate was saying in terms of just like secondhand. She loves getting like a good deal. And she's probably going to take me to Buffalo Exchange here in Austin. And so I'll hang with her and maybe cop a cool pair of something. But most of my money's spent on food. So if I can just say leading up to the holidays, I'm so excited to spend money on food and go wild to gain some holiday LBs more than buying things. I'm more looking forward to that. So that's my answer.
I mean, they do say that experiences are better gifts than actual items. So maybe if you're gating those LBs while you're with people, I guess that's the best gift you could ask for.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I'm looking forward to that.
Thank you guys so much. Thank you everyone for all of the tactics, the tips, the tricks, the brands. I'm gonna have to start shopping and finding some of these brands you guys mentioned, but also get them secondhand. So, maybe if I'm looking at like Magic Spoon cereal, I don't think I'll get any secondhand cereal, but we'll see. Hey, you made it to the end, and we didn't even go through any slides. If you do want to learn more about Arca, Daily Karma, Shopify, or any of the stuff we talked about today, we've got links in the doobly-doo. And I do hope that BFCM is everything that you hope it to be, personally, as a brand, as a business. And until next time, because we do hope to do more of these fireside chats, stay smiling.